Okay, hello, this is Dr. Janes, and today I was going to talk about the Death Wobble issue on the Ford F-250 and F-350. And it was actually my buddy who asked me to, he suggested I can make a video on this. He figured out the solution. He's a mechanical engineer at my work, and a very brilliant guy. And I'm going to talk about the reasons why the Death Wobble on the Ford F-250 and F-350 happens, and why it doesn't happen on the F-150, and the solution that he found that he put on his own truck to fix it. And so let's talk about, first of all, why the F-150 is different. So the F-150 has independent suspension, and so the wheels on the left and right hand side and the front are not coupled together. And the Death Wobble, let's talk about why the Death Wobble happens. So here is a picture of a F-250, I believe, and so this has a single axle, where the F-150 is more like a normal automobile. It has independent suspension for each of the wheels, and this axle couples any movement from one wheel to the other together. So I guess prior to 2005, Ford used to have shock absorbers on the bottom here. Let me get a picture here. So they'd have dual shock absorbers. Okay, so here's a picture of the kind of damping that they had on the F-250, F-350 pre-2005. And what happened is they had shock absorbers that would damp the axle directly. So what happens is, once you get going fast, a little change in this tire can send a little change through the axle over to this tire, and then the oscillations can start to grow because you're going fast. Those oscillations are driven, and the truck can start to wobble basically out of control. It's one of these things where it's an undamped oscillation, and it can just keep on growing as long as you're putting energy into it. So what happened is that let's go back to one of the pictures where we're showing the linkage from above. So the way the linkage is now, or the damping is now, is there's a linkage that comes down from the steering to the wheels, and there's just a single shock on that. And now this works fine for a while. As long as all of the joints in this whole linkage are tight, it can damp out oscillations in the axle. What you really want to do is damp out the oscillations in the axle, but when the linkage in the tire over here starts to get a little bit loose, so there's some play there, and then linkage here gets loose, then this damping up here no longer effectively damps the axle oscillations, and the axle can feed back between the two tires and cause this wobble to happen, which is I guess very dangerous. I've never experienced it, but my buddy says he doesn't like it at all when it happens. And so what he did, let's go back. Okay, so instead of having the damping on this linkage up here and have it go through the wheel and then try to damp out the oscillations in the axle, he put extra dampers right here on the actual axle. And I guess the reason why they use two is because they're under pressure, and has something to do with keeping the bubbles out of the shock absorbers. It's harder to, I guess, keep the bubbles out of one that's in like neutral pressure. So you have to have these balance each other out, because they're both pushing a force on each other, and you don't want that to steer the car left or right. So you have two to balance out the forces that are here, and then it damps directly on the axle, which is what you really want, rather than damping up here and then having to rely on going through this linkage, and relying on this linkage is tight. So I guess over time this linkage gets loose, and then this axle is free to wobble, because this linkage up here that connects through the tire can no longer effectively damp it. And so he said he's done this fix on his car, put this damping directly on the axle, and he hasn't had any problems with the Death Wobble since. So he wanted me to share this with you. He's going to share it with some other people and share it on the forums also, but he just wanted to put something out there, have me help him put something out there to help people who are interested in solving this Death Wobble problem. Anyway, this is Dr. Janes, and thanks for watching.